Commissioners, have you read the agenda? Are there any edits? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, no. Ayes have it. All right, the agenda has been adopted. So next up is the approval of the September 27th, 2018 minutes. Commissioners, I'm assuming you've had a chance to read the minutes. Any edits? Need a motion to approve? Second? All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? No. All right, ayes have it. The minutes have been adopted. So we are now going to move down the list to the recognition of council members. Councilman Kendall, would you like to speak now or wait until your item?
Well, I will.
You'll speak now?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm here on the, let's see which one it is. 095 PR-001 2018Z. It's the rezoning from RS10 to RM6 zoning for an unnumbered property located at Hobson Pike. No, it's not me.
Is it
I'm getting ready.
13? Is it by
13,
chance
I'm on
number
the next
13?
one, I'm sorry.
It's
Yeah,
an
I got you.
R6 to MUL on
Right.
Mary Street? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here in support of that. We've had several meetings with the residents there and also the churches that are located on that street, Mount Nebo, and there's another church on the corner. There's very few residents on the street. I believe Woodbine has developed some property there, and they've swapped out some properties, I understand. This piece of property is located, I know it's not a part of the plan, but it's located right near the railroad track. And actually what it does, in my opinion, it creates a flow of traffic much better than what's there now. If you go down Mary Street now and you try to turn around, it's going to take you 5 minutes just to turn your car around to get back up the street. So my understanding is that could be used also as a flow for a turnaround where they can go through the parking lot and come back out. It's not visible very much to anybody, even if you're on Mary Street, because of where it's located. And it also helps the project of ServPro where they're doing the renovations. The back of that building is on Mary Street, the building they have now, and it's a pretty dilapidated looking structure. If you ride down through there, I mean, it's not pretty at all. But what they're planning to do in the plans they have, that facade on the Mary Street side will be very attractive. It will be entrances into to smaller businesses there from that side. Of course, the major parking for ServPro will be in the complex itself, and I think you all have a picture of that. But I am in support of that. I think it also helps, I think, with the swapping out of some of the properties on that street to give an opportunity to do some affordable housing. And I'm working with the churches there now who own some of those properties to try to make that happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman. So next up, we have Councilwoman Murphy. Is she here? Would you like to speak now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So Councilwoman Kathleen Murphy, 231 Orlando Avenue. I wanted to just touch again on the Charlotte corridor study. I spoke a little bit about it 2 weeks ago and asked y'all to defer it because we had a few more things to work out. And I just really appreciate the staff has worked directly with my community and people who have brought up concerns to kind of work that out, clarify the policy, and even make some tweaks that were needed on some areas. And so I just wanted to highlight a couple of of pieces of this for y'all that I think is important for the public to know, and that I appreciate being fleshed out through the policy. So really that this is just, a lot of people were confused at first that this was a zone change that was coming through. That would be a super fast, big zone change. So no, this is a land use policy update that will serve as a guide for future recommendations on zone changes in the area. And I think what's important is this is the Charlotte corridor, while updated as part of Nashville Next, really hadn't been focused on and updated in many years. I think almost 10 years or something like that. And so this has been a perfect time to kind of take that opportunity. Another kind of confusing part of this for some of my constituents that we spent a little bit of extra time fleshing out and explaining is that this is separate from the in-motion plan. So this is part of an updating Nashville Next and separate from in-motion. In-motion is what really speaks to what is the right-of-way on all of our streets, as many of you know. And so when we did have some community members that had concerns about what is the right-of-way on these streets. Is it growing? It's going to change where the sidewalk is in the park, or, are we going to have to tear down historic buildings on Charlotte because we need to widen the right-of-way? And that's not part of this policy. That was part of in-motion. And no, Metro is not going to tear down historic buildings to add an extra lane. But so it was good for the community almost to, basically get educated on some of those pieces of how there are different plans that kind of guide all of this. And this, what y'all are discussing and passing tonight, hopefully, is not touching the right-of-way and not changing anything that's in motion, because that has already been done. What also, I don't know if y'all have done this in other policy updates. I am not familiar with it in Nashville Next, but we put some things in place for trade-offs for more density if developers and property owners basically allow the floodplain to be reclaimed and go back to a natural state. I think that's a huge win for the neighbors and for the Charlotte corridor, especially since I've got a creek in my backyard. I have seen it expand over the past 11 years. And so I think it's important that the kind of the carrot and the stick, the way that we're going to get this floodplain and the creek kind of back to where we don't have flood damage is to give this incentive. And so I appreciate the staff kind of being creative and figuring out what does that look like? How can we do that? Because I think it's going to be important on other corridors that have creeks along them as well. This plan is going to give me a pretty long, I've got at least 15 bullet points of to-do items for the capital improvements budget and for public works and for things like that. So thank you for giving us a little bit more work to do to put on some other departments. And I also wanted to take a minute to thank our steering committee, Mary Baker, Michael Crabtree, Julie Griffin, Angela Pickney O'Neill, Bernard Pickney, Seema Prezed, Austin Ray, John Summers, Jennifer Buck-Wallace, Don Watt, and Lee White. And so it has been an interesting process. I think a lot of people got to know each other through it. We got to see some different views and understanding. And so thank you for allowing your staff to do these processes. And I ask for your approval tonight. So thank you.
Thanks, Councilwoman. All right, we have Councilman Mendez. Would you like to speak now?
Thank you. So I'm here on number 16. The Vice Mayor has asked me at least through the end of the year to handle zoning matters in District 29 now that Karen Johnson's been elected Register of Deeds. And I believe there's one constituent from District 29 who's interested in speaking against this one. And mostly I'm here to listen to what she has to say. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. I think that's it. So we are ready for the next item on our agenda, which is items for deferral or withdrawal.
Items for deferral or withdrawal are as follows. Item number 3, 2018 SP 001001 on page 4 of your agenda, the Sloan and West Lawn SP. A request to rezone from R6 to SP. Staff recommendation is to defer to the October 25th Planning Commission meeting. Item number 4, 2018 SP 050001 on page 4 of your agenda, 6280 New Hope Road SP, a request to rezone from AR2A to SP. Staff recommendation is to defer to the October 25th Planning Commission meeting. Item number 7, 2014 SP 001005 on page 5 of your agenda. It's the Treaty Oaks SP amendment, a request to amend a specific plan. Staff recommendation is to withdraw, and I will note that Commissioner Blackshear is recusing herself from that item. Item number 8, 2018 SP 062001 on page 5 of your agenda, 222 to 228 Donaldson Pike SP, a request to rezone from R10 to SP. Staff recommendation is to defer to the October 25th Planning Commission meeting. Item number 9, 2018 SP 063001 on page 5 of your agenda, 1114 West Grove SP, a request to rezone from R8 to SP. Staff recommendation is to defer to the November 8th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. That's it.
Okay, so let's review. So we have items numbers 3, 4, 7, 8, and 9. Commissioners, you've heard the items that are up for deferral or withdrawal. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right. Any discussion? None. So, see, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? All right, so those items have been deferred or withdrawn. So the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda items.
I will also note that the meeting on October 25th is located in a different location. It will be at the Metro Schools Administration Building at 2601 Bransford Avenue due to early voting. So the meeting on October 25th will be in an alternative location. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the Planning Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact independent legal counsel. As a notice to the public, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. The following items are on the consent agenda. Item number 1, 2018 CP 007003 on page 4 of your agenda, the West Nashville Community Plan Amendment. It's a request to amend the West Nashville Community Plan on various properties located within Charlotte Avenue between I-440 and White Bridge Pike, amend the adopted Major and Collector Street Plan designations, and amend walk and bike. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 2, 2018 Z005TX001, a request to amend Title 17 of the zoning ordinance pertaining to parking requirements for certain uses. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 5, 2018 Z087PR001, a request to rezone from RS5 to RM20 for property located on 927 Douglas Avenue. Staff recommendation is to disapprove as submitted and approve R6A. Item number 11, 2018 SP 068001 on page 6 of your agenda. It's the 0 Buena Vista Pike SP. It's a request to rezone from CL and R8 to SP zoning for properties located at 2210 and 2216 Buena Vista Pike, located on the eastern corner of the intersection of Buena Vista and Cliff Drive, to permit a mixed-use development. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Item number 12, 2018 Z090PR001. It's a request to rezone from RS10 to RM6 for property located on Hobson Pike. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 14, 2018Z097PR001 on page 6, a request to rezone from RS20 to AR2A zoning on properties located at 3914 and 3920 Brick Church Pike. Staff recommendation is to approve. I will note that Commissioner Blackshear is recusing herself from that item. Item number 15, 2018Z098PR001, a request to rezone from RM20 to MULA for properties located at 1501 Herman Street. Staff recommendation is to approve. And item number 16, 2018Z100PR001 on page 6 of your agenda. A request to rezone from R20 to IWD for properties located at 2793 Couchville Pike and Ned Shelton Road unnumbered. Staff recommendation is to approve. Under other business on page 7 of your agenda, item number 18, adoption of the 2019 calendar. Item number 19, a new employment contract for Joni Priest. Item number 23, to accept the director's report and approve administrative items.
If I can just clarify 2 points. I just learned, if Councilman Withers can confirm this, that we'd like to pull item 2 from the consent list and have that deferred to the November 8th meeting. And so I think what I would recommend that the commission do is consider the consent items as amended with removing number 2, and then we'll take a separate vote after this to approve the deferral. Staff agrees with the request to defer. That's the first thing. Second, I do want to confirm, Councilman Mendez, item number 16 is on consent. So would you like to have the commission hear the item? Okay. So we would be removing items 2, and then item 16 will be removed from consent. So.
All right. So let's review the consent agenda as amended. So we have items 1, 5, 11, 12, 14, 15, 18, 19, 23.
That's correct.
All right, so commissioners, you've heard of these items, the consent agenda as amended. We will need a motion to adopt.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No? All right, ayes have it. The consent agenda as amended has been adopted.
And number 2, to vote to defer.
Okay, so we'll take up item number 2 and a vote to defer.
To the deferral would be to the November 8th, 2018 meeting. Okay.
All right, any discussion? None? All right, so all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so that item has been deferred.
Do you want me to confirm the items that we're going to hear?
Yeah.
Okay, Lisa, so can we just confirm that we're hearing items number 6, 10, 13, and 16?
Correct.
Okay. No.
So-
The next item on the agenda is item number 6. This is a request to rezone property from AR2A to CS zoning. Staff recommendation is to disapprove. The 6-acre site is located at 1488 and 1492 Bell Road, approximately 4,600 feet west of the intersection of Bell Road and Blue Hole Road in the Southeast Community Plan area. Site conditions include 2 parcels, each with a single-family house. Surrounding land uses consist of single-family residential with some 2-family residential and large vacant parcels. The site is located in the agricultural residential AR2A zoning district. Nearby zoning districts include the AR2A zoning district, commercial service, and an SP, residential SP, located immediately east of the site. The site is also located near the center of a large area of AR2A zoning.
We know.
The site is located in the conservation and T3 suburban neighborhood evolving policy areas. Nearby policy areas include the T3 suburban neighborhood center and district office concentration policy areas. Conservation policy is intended to preserve environmentally sensitive land features through protection and remediation. T3 suburban neighborhood evolving policy is intended to create and enhance suburban residential neighborhoods with more housing choices, improved pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular connectivity, and moderate density development patterns. T3 suburban neighborhood evolving policy is intended primarily for residential uses. The requested commercial service zoning district permits commercial uses, which is not consistent with the T3 suburban neighborhood evolving policy. The proposed rezoning is not consistent with the T3 suburban neighborhood evolving policy area, as it could introduce commercial uses into a policy area that is intended to create and enhance residential neighborhoods. Given the aforementioned, staff recommendation is to disapprove.
Okay, so we will open this item up for public hearing. The applicant can come up if they would like to. You have 10 minutes.
Hello, John Fox, 1450 Cumberland Ridge Way. We wanted to thank you guys for hearing us again. We were here 2 weeks ago. We are trying to build a 65,000 square foot storage facility that would have 1,800 to 2,000 square feet of office and business incubator space in the front. We would be trying to build a facility, especially with the business offices, that would give a look of a retail as opposed to the normal opinion of storage with the warehouse look. We are trying to do the incubator with working with Councilman Bendy and his district indicated that was something that was needed for the neighborhood. They discussed the site as agricultural, but it's also a challenge site because near the street up there, there are power lines running across the top of the parcels of land. And right now it is zoned agricultural, but there is retail and commercial and large multifamily facilities that are close by. So in long term, I think they are trying to amend the neighborhood plan to get more commercial uses in that area, so it probably will not stay agricultural long term. So I think we're just a little bit ahead of the curve, which was discussed at the last meeting, so sorry to repeat myself. We did have a community meeting with Councilman Bendy present. All the members of the community were supportive of it. And as we discussed last time, storage as a use, it creates less traffic than most facilities, 10 to 20 cars a day. And based on our feasibility study, the national average, they say, recommends about 8.2 square feet per person of storage. Right now, the area has right around 6 feet per person, so we'd help bring down costs for the neighbors that do use storage. So I'll reserve those 2 minutes. Thank you.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak in support? Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition? All right, we will declare, there's nothing to rebut, so we will declare this public meeting closed. All right. Councilman, would you like to go first?
Thank you. I was pushing the wrong button. Well, first of all, thanks for wanting to hear from me. I really didn't expect you guys to necessarily vote in support because of the community plan situation. Let me give you some background on this. This started last year, really, and I don't allow any project to come to the planning staff until I know that the community supports it. So early on, we met with the council staff to discuss this project, and we got some feedback, and nowhere on the feedback was that there will be a need to amend the community plan. So if I would have known, or we had known that, then a request would have been made to the planning staff to work on a community plan. So this is nothing about the planning staff. It's just an unfortunate misunderstanding. What happened is, as we were getting closer to having that meeting, we had the meeting, the community came forward, they were okay with it, they were excited about having some commercial use that had the neighborhood scale, like a coffee shop or an office space. So that's what they're looking for on Bell Road. No longer so much density on housing, but some community opportunities to go and walk to a shop and be able to walk on Bell Road, which is now a freeway, basically. And they want to take back that road and make it into part of the community, a place that they can walk to and enjoy. So what happened is we had the meeting. I told them, you may go ahead and file. And then the budget season started. So they were told, well, why don't you wait till the end of the budget season? That's why you were never given an opportunity to give the feedback on the community plan. So the budget season ends, and then they'll file, and then it comes to you, and you guys said that it has to be an adjustment on the community plan. So I felt really bad for them because they did everything we asked them to do, and yet they were being asked to wait maybe many more months until the planning staff have the time to engage in a community plan adjustment. So I really don't like to ask the planning staff or the commissioners to vote against the community plan, because that's what the community plan is for. But knowing that and having a sense of where the community is, that they want to see an adjustment of a plan that was created a long time ago when Bell Road was the latest frontier on Nashville, I think that it will be adjusted. I think when you guys finally engage with the community, hopefully sooner than later, then the community plan will show that these type of projects are what people want. So I am going to ask my peers in the council to support this project, but I really don't expect you to necessarily vote for it, because you have to work within the constraints that are given to you. So I am very comfortable asking my peers in the council to vote for this project, because I know what the community wants, and I know that when we finally get around to do the community plan adjustment, it will show that this is the type of projects they want. Just a little bit for your information, one of the biggest problems we face, well, that's an exaggeration. That's not one of the biggest problems we face. One of the problems we face in the Southeast is the lack of opportunities for small business owners to open a shop. And they end up working from home. They'll put their shop on their garage or on the den, and if they are a lawyer or an accountant or a musician or a builder, they'll just work from their house. And that's really the biggest problem here, is that we are not giving people in the Southeast an opportunity to find a place to get out of their house and run their business. So I think this model, I hope it gets repeated, because what really happens with a builder is they'll rent a storage unit. They put all their tools in the storage unit, and they'll run a business from that, because it's a cost-efficient way to take a step out of the house and into running a business. And having this storefront that they are creating, where people can rent a little office space in the front to see customers, is going to close the deal for many people that are trying to start on a business path. So I feel very excited about what they're proposing to do. I think it matches what people want as a way to get out of their garage or their den, their house, and start a business. But again, I understand that you guys are between a rock and a hard place. So that's my story.
Thanks, Councilman. And you mentioned this a little bit, but can you explain to us what our role is as a commission when it comes to voting on matters that may be, I guess, against what we view as the interpretation of the policy?
Yeah, so first of all, I do want to say the councilman has asked the staff to go out and do a community plan update. Given our work program, we aren't always able to go out as quickly as we would like, but I would anticipate that being something that we could accomplish next year. And so we will work very hard to ensure that this area is developing cohesively and, as the councilman says, according to his vision. But when we're looking at a rezoning, it is critical to look at the constraints and expectations of the policy. And I think in this instance, you have a residential policy, and so as the councilman acknowledged, I think it would be unusual to support a use that is not residential. But I do think that I would expect that when we get out into the community and look at the surrounding properties and look at this property, that that they'll express their goals, and we may see that this area has more commercial uses and other things that the community desires. And so, but that just wasn't able to happen before this zone change.
Commissioner Bichelle?
Well, so if I understand right, then because right now the way the community plan stands, we really would have to have a strong justification for voting against staff recommendation. And that strong justification, could that be this kind of testimony from Commissioner Bedney, or it really can't hold? It needs to be, the community plan needs to be amended before we could vote against staff recommendation.
Sometimes I would say there's a gray area, but when you have a residential policy, really that's something that this commission has been pretty strict in adhering to. So I think I would advise on the latter, that our recommendation is to disapprove, but I would put on the record here that you expect the staff to go out and do a community plan update and to take into account the councilman's guidance. And you've just done that as to what we need over the long term. But I'm not sure I would not advise recommending an approval with caveats, I think, when it's a residential policy, mainly because of the commission's stance on those policies, but also because of precedent. And we want to make sure that we're giving very clear expectations to the development community and community members who have expressed a desire to keep residential areas as residential. So understanding that this is a different situation, but I think that I would weigh that as more important.
Okay, I do. So in that case, I will go ahead and accept staff recommendation, but I do feel that we should try to find a way to be more creative about enabling alternate uses for properties that help communities be more vibrant, and that sometimes this hard and fast rule about residential being only residential is detrimental to the communities that are even trying to enforce it.
Sure. Commissioner Haynes?
I certainly respect Councilman Bedney's goals in this, but I think it's pretty clear that we need to support staff's recommendation.
I want to thank my fellow commissioners for allowing us time to talk to you, Councilman, Commissioner, because I felt like I so respect the way you work with your community and your understanding of land use, that when you supported this, it was important to hear from you. So thank you, but I do agree our job. The council can do one thing, but we're held to policy, so I'm going to support the staff.
That I agree with what's been said. I think Councilmember Bedney did an excellent job of stating the issues and stating the concerns, and we are looking forward to hearing back from the staff on the community plan.
I agree, and I thank you, Councilman, and I look forward to seeing what happens in council with this, and especially with staff and moving forward with the community plan.
So do we have a motion?
Move approval of staff's recommendation of disapproval.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. So the staff's recommendation of disapproval has been adopted. So we will move on to the next item, which is item number 10 on the agenda.
Good evening. The next item on the agenda is item 10. The request is rezoned from R10 to specific plan zoning to permit 40 single-family lots. The site is located at the terminus of Barnett Drive, approximately 600 feet west of the intersection of Barnett Drive and Dickerson Pike. As a point of reference, this is Barnett Drive here, and this is Dickerson Pike here. Sorry, this is Barnett, Dickerson. The site is approximately 17.97 acres and is currently vacant. Staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. The property is currently zoned 1 and 2 family residential and sits in a larger area of R10 zone properties. Single-family zoning exists south of the site, while commercial zoning and a series of specific plans are present along Dickerson Pike. The property is located within the T3 Suburban Neighborhood Evolving Policy Area, which is intended to create and enhance suburban residential neighborhoods with more housing choices and improved connectivity. A wider look at the area shows the site bound by the Neighborhood Evolving Policy to the south and west, while neighborhood maintenance exists to the north. Suburban mixed-use corridors found east of the site and along Dickerson Pike. The plan proposes 40 single-family residential lots ranging from 3,600 square feet to 5,500 square feet. Access to the site will be provided by the extension of Bellshire Terrace Drive, Pineview Drive, and Tuckahoe Drive, which are all identified as local streets by the Major and Collector Street Plan. A series of public alleys will provide direct access to lots 18 through 40, while shared driveways will be used to access lots 1 through 17. Heights will be limited to 3 stories and 35 feet, and the plan also includes architectural standards. Improved pedestrian facilities consisting of 5-foot sidewalks and 4-foot planting strips are proposed, and a total of 12.7 acres is set aside as open space. Staff recommends approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions, as the plan is consistent with the goals of the land use policy for this site.
All right, we will now open this item up for public hearing. The applicant can come up. You have 10 minutes. You can reserve 2 for rebuttal.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Michael Garrigan. I'm with Dale & Associates, 516 Heather Place. We're representing the property owner on this project. I spoke with the member from the community. She has several questions, and I'll keep it brief and just simply let you know what I told her. We will be having a follow-up meeting to this with Council Lady Haywood, and specifically invite her as well to make sure that any questions that do come up get answered. But I don't think she was in favor or against it. She just wasn't aware of it. So I had that conversation with her. Other than that, we've worked closely with staff. It's a very challenging piece of property, both geometrically and topography-wise. The majority of it will be preserved into open space because it just can't be built upon. And we've allowed for open space and parking for a future trailhead to the Greenway, and we think it could be a really positive development for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support? All right. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, we will declare this public hearing closed. Okay. So, commissioners? Commissioner Moore?
I support staff's recommendation with the SP. It allows less homes than what is allowed with the current zoning, so.
I tend to agree. For a little bit of clarification, I'm struggling to read some of these small print things. How do these blow-ups fit onto the big site?
Okay. So this is Tuckahoe right here. So this is where kind of the first half of the plan would come in. Pine View comes across right over here. So it would connect through the site here. And then Belshire comes straight down here.
Okay.
So this is kind of the eastern portion of the plan right here. Belshire, this would be the western Tuckahoe, and this is kind of the match line right here. It's right here.
Those two drawings sort of overlap, if you will.
These lots are
the
these
north-south
lots here.
road,
Okay.
yes. So,
That was my confusion.
yeah, they overlap there.
So I tend to support staff's recommendation.
I don't have any questions on this one. It looks like it's actually a pretty good fit for what's going on here.
It looks good to me too. I just still don't quite understand. You said Pine View, does that come down off this Timpani or something? Oh, I see it. Never mind. Okay, I get it. Just trying to figure out how it hooked in. Okay, I support staff.
Councilman?
Me too.
Okay. All right, I need a motion.
So moved. Move approval of staff's recommendation.
Do we have a second? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we will have staff's recommendation of approval with conditions and disapproval with all conditions adopted. Okay, we are moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is item number 13.
The next item on the agenda is item 13. The request is a rezone from R6 to MUL zoning. The site consists of two parcels totaling .21 acres and is located at the terminus of Mary Street, approximately 900 feet east of the intersection of Mary Street and 25th Avenue North. As a point of reference, this is Clifton right here, and this is 25th Avenue North here. The site is currently vacant. Staff's recommendation is to disapprove. The site is currently zoned R6 and lies within a large area of single and two-family zone properties. Surrounding properties to the north are zoned RS 7.5, while property to the west is zoned R6. Surrounding properties to the south are zoned for light industrial uses. The site sits at the edge of a large area of T4 neighborhood evolving policy, with T4 mixed-use neighborhood to the south and district industrial further to the east. The urban neighborhood evolving policy is applied to areas that are zoned residential and where the primary land use is envisioned to remain residential. The T4 NE policy does not support non-residential zoning districts. Staff recommends disapproval of the request as it is not supported by the T4 neighborhood evolving policy for the site. The requested rezoning would permit a range of office, retail, and other non-residential uses that would be inconsistent with the land use policy. Additionally, the site has limited access as it is located at the terminus of Mary Street and the alley to the rear of the property is unbuilt. The proposed rezoning would allow for development and uses that are not supported by the policy applied to the property and the surrounding residential area, and therefore staff recommends disapproval.
Okay, so we will open this item up for public hearing. Applicant, you have 10 minutes. 2 minutes may be reserved for rebuttal. You can, if you go to the staff on the other end, they can.
Thank you. My name's Kevin Gangaware. I'm with Civil Site Design Group, the engineers on this project. Thank you for allowing us to speak to you. Wanted to start with kind of an explanation of this project. And so what we're handing out to you is a series of photos that we'd like to let you run through. The first shows an overall of the property, which shows an item called City Heights. That's going to be a redevelopment, a reuse, a repurpose of an existing warehouse. Turn it in from a warehouse into a office building, and multi-uses in the office building instead of just a single use. And then the property it shows the property that we're asking to be rezoned on Mary Street. That's going to be used for additional parking for this City Heights office building. Right next to the City Heights, we've labeled the Family and Children Services. That is another warehouse that's been repurposed, and the nonprofit Family and Children Services is renovating that right now to use that. So this area is starting to change. The next photo is a photo of the existing warehouse from Mary Street. And the next two photos, actually, if you look at those, they show what the building looks like today. And it is dilapidated, as the councilman had said, and a bit of an eyesore. The street is a dead end with no turnaround at the end. The next photo shows the last house on Mary Street that's directly next to our development. This is a house that's being built today by Woodbine Community Organization, and our property would be next to that. And we have a letter, by the way, in the back of this that we're going to read to you real quick from this owner of this property, and he states very clearly his feelings about it. The next photo shows you an image, a rendering of what the repurposed building's going to look like when they're done. So you can see clearly the facelift that's being done for that. That image will be reflected on the Mary Street side as well. That the Mary Street will not be the back of the building. It'll be the face of the offices on that side. Then the last image shows a breakdown of what the office makeup will look like interior. So the purpose of that long monologue was to let you know the reason we're asking for this rezoning is to make some improvements in this area and in this neighborhood. But in order to do that, we've got to be able to make it viable from a development standpoint, and so the parking's necessary for that. One thing that the parking does for this is Mary Street is dead end with no turnaround. There's a lot of dumping and a lot of other things that happen that when we activate this street with this parking, with this office building and the parking, we think a lot of those bad activities may go away. We also will be using the parking as, and I know this is going to be hard to see, but Mary Street, the parking will act as a turnaround for Mary Street. So when people go to the end of it, it'll actually act as a loop to turn cars around and be able to get back out. It won't be fenced, it won't be gated, so it'll be available to turn around. And so then I want to speak real quickly, and I'm going to run out of time here, but to speak to the director's comment about policy. This is a residential policy. I think this one's a little bit different, though, because the residential policy, we're right next to some railroad tracks. The property next to us, between us and the railroad tracks, is zoned industrial. The property behind us is zoned industrial, and we're right on the edge of the policy. And so to take the authors of these policies who have to draw these areas, these policy lines, and assume that they're going to nail that policy line perfectly across the entire community of Nashville, I don't think that's fair to the authors of those policies. I think if we move this policy line over 50 feet to the west, then our property is not in the residential zone. So the idea that the policy is unbending and unyielding for all times, and we have to go back to a policy change back through council in order to amend these things, especially when we're right on the edges of things, I don't think that's necessarily maybe what Nashville community policies were meant to do. I think they maybe should be a little more yielding and a little more bending, especially on the edges like this. So I'm sorry I'm running out of time, but I'm gonna let the owner speak because he wants to let you know about the neighbor's letter on that. and then I'm available for questions.
Good afternoon. I'm Rob Dixon with ServPro and owner at 2322 Clifton Avenue. And so I want to thank you all for hearing us today, and want to state that I'm excited to be part of what's going on in the quickly evolving Clifton Avenue corridor. It's exciting to see what's taking shape there. Been there for 7 years, and as of late, things have really started to take off. And so we're excited to be part of that. This request would help to revitalize the backside of our Clifton property, which is Mary Street there on the dead end, and help facilitate parking for what we are planning. And so I want to read a letter from the neighbor to our west, which is Woodbine Community Organization. Their executive director, Tony Woodham, wrote a letter that I wanted to read for you all quickly. Dear Councilman Kendall, by this letter, I wish to express my strong support for project zone change 2018Z095PR001, located at 2302 Mary Street, submitted by RM Dixon Real Estate LLC. This project is being developed through a collaborative partnership of community stakeholders, including Mary Street Church of God, Family and Children's Services, Woodbine Community Organization, Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency, neighbors, and friends. This request proposes to rezone and develop as parking 2 blighted residential lots past the terminus of Mary Street, adjacent to our under-construction single-family home at 2304 Mary and an industrial lot at 0 Mary. While I'm supportive of the application of T4NE policy to maintain residential zoning in our community, it's my opinion and others that its use in disapproving this project is not taking into consideration the site-specific circumstances that offer a compelling excuse for exemption. The identified residentially zoned site has and remains today a detriment to the immediate community by offering a secluded location for illegal dumping and vagrancy. In the last year alone, Woodbine Community Organization, in partnership with MDHA, the prior owner, has spent $6,200 cleaning up the site. These efforts were part of a coordinated strategy to develop the site for single-family affordable housing in compliance with local zoning and the CDBG land use restrictions that remain on the property to this day. Because the site is past the terminus of Mary Street, significant development costs would be incurred to establish access and meet fire safety and stormwater requirements. Simply put, it's not financially feasible to develop affordable housing on the site due to the land use restrictions imposed by the CDBG and in compliance with the current zoning without a substantial public or private development subsidy. Acknowledging the development challenges imposed by the uniqueness of this site, MDHA granted conditional approval upon successful zoning change and agreed to transfer ownership to RM Dixon Real Estate LLC to develop the site as parking in support of the proposed project at 2322 Clifton. Another use allowed by the CDBG land use restriction economic benefit. Without this zoning approval, 2302 Mary will remain indefinitely a vacant blemish on our community that disrupts the existing character of our residential neighborhood and permits illegal uses that are not supported by the surrounding residential area. Thank you for allowing me to support and express my support for this project. I look forward to continuing our work to strengthen the community and welcome all questions and concerns. Tony Woodham, Executive Director. So, thank you all.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak in support of this item? You could state your name and address, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Linda Lathers, and I serve as the CEO of an organization called The Next Door, and we own 2 pieces of property close to the project. One is at 402 22nd Avenue, and then also 2100 Clifton Avenue, the Freedom Recovery Community, which is 21 families, affordable housing for women who are living in recovery with their kids. It's amazing. So we're very supportive of this project for several reasons. One is we believe it'll build another walkable space for our women to have jobs. We're also very excited about the property because of the safety issues that this property gains for the community. I went to the enthusiastic community meeting about this project. And after the meeting, I said, I'm going to get to know this part of it. I turned in my car to go down that way. And quite frankly, it was dark. It was a bit scary. And I did have to take the 6-point curve to try to turn my car around because there was no way out. So I thought what an advancement this would be for our community, for our clients, for our organization, for the community as a whole. So we're excited and enthusiastic about the project and would ask for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? All right, we will declare this public hearing closed. Commissioner Haynes?
So I tend to disagree with staff, but I want to ask legal counsel a question. I think the parking is needed for City Heights. I completely get that. If City Heights were to fail and want to sell this parking lot and the MUL zoning would stay, is there a way for us to carve out an exception legally so that then it has to revert back to its existing zoning?
I don't think that y'all can put a caveat on it like that. I think that if it is rezoned, then that zoning, if they have an intent to use it for something and they use it for that and that's what y'all approve, thinking that that's fine. But if they sell it, the zoning stands, and then whoever purchased it could do anything under
So
the
is there a way to impose deed restrictions on it for it to stay as a parking lot?
Typically, deed restrictions are between private parties, and Metro does not. Metro not being a party to a deed restriction would not have a way to enforce that. That would be between the private parties.
Okay, I will listen to the rest of my commissioners.
Commissioner Sims?
I am very much in favor of what the staff has asked because any kind of buildable lots in the urban core are becoming so rare. And I do understand, I really respect the work of the Woodbine community and, building on the long legacy of Kathy Dodd, and Tony's doing a good job. But I don't quite understand why it's not buildable. I've seen people build stuff all over Nashville in every way possible. And we are so limited in places where we can build housing that people can actually live in the city of Nashville that I'm reluctant to give this up for any reason other than trying to build houses on it. So
I'm torn on this one. I totally support the concept. I don't like, since it's not consistent with the plan. I do understand Mr. Gangowire's saying the edges of the plans do evolve, and so just to make sure I am oriented, we've got a rectangle shown there. What is on the property just to the east of that?
I believe that property is vacant, just directly east of the project site.
And that lot is, how is that lot zoned? It's 254 on our...
That is R6 as well.
Okay.
It's IR. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm to the east. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, that is an industrial zone.
Okay. And this is going to be just a surface lot that supports the City Heights, which is going to be across Murray Street, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm torn. I think we're in just like the last one, I think we're in a position where it may make sense, but once we start this, when do you stop? How do you stop?
I think the staff really debated this one because we sort of understood what the plan, and somebody on the team pointed out to me today, there's nothing more difficult than having residential neighborhoods abutting railroads, because often it makes it very challenging to get the policies and the land uses to line up in a way that makes sense, because the properties aren't configured in a way sometimes that work. I wonder if it would be helpful, Lee, if you could address the question of the edges, because I do think that as a commission, we greatly value transitions between spaces, and Commissioner, if you would find that helpful. Lee, I wonder if you could clarify how we would think about the edges of this policy.
Sure. I mean, I think the applicant was exactly right in that, the authors of the policy don't look for those policy lines to be perfect every time that we imagine a transition from one policy to the next. In this case, one of our biggest struggles was the transition would be adjacent to a railroad on a dead-end street. So if you can imagine a corridor that has an intense policy along the corridor and then a neighborhood evolving policy next door to that, but everything being accessed off of the corridor, in that case, we may contemplate a use similar to this adjacent to an intense policy along a corridor. In this case, it's at the end of a dead-end street, so that if the MUL is approved and if that MUL grows over time, that in more intense use, the traffic is actually coming through the neighborhood area along Mary to access a more intense use. So it's working sort of backwards than we would typically anticipate in a transition area. So that made this one a little bit more difficult to apply kind of a transition thought process to.
I'm just going to listen.
So I was feeling a little bit more torn until your comments, Lee, because I really do like the project and looking at it and looking at this piece of land, but I think from hearing some of your comments earlier about policy and just kind of what are gray areas, and based on Lee's comments about that and where it is and how that would affect the community in that street that is not a corridor, I think I'm inclined to support staff's recommendation.
I am inclined to disagree with staff on this. It seems to me that, so last time I voted against the plan, sorry. But that time, the thing was right in the middle of a community plan, of a section that needed to have a plan change. And really, I felt sort of bad about voting against it. It seemed like there was no one speaking against it. And, it seemed like the community had already worked with Councilman Bedney. And so I think this one, right on the edge of that industrial zone, right next to a railroad track, there's really no way they can get to that other lot, number 254, without already also having this lot, I can't read the numbers, 256 and 255. And the community's supporting this. And this is just a matter of, you can have that whole long definition of corridors and everything, but just logically speaking, this makes sense. It's railroad tracks, there's a parking lot, an office. I liked what the lady said about walkability for the residents of that special program. And I think it's good for the community. I'm voting against staff.
Councilman?
Do they need the parking to meet the parking requirements of the building permit for the other thing? So if we don't support this, then they cannot do the other one, which is properly zoned. They could go and find a piece of property like a half a mile away and maybe meet the requirement by busing people. It's one of the things where you go like, this doesn't make any sense, because this is the right thing to do. It's a proper use of that property is right there. It'll be next to a train line. But then there is the issue of, a slippery slope, right? We start going against the community plan, and then it's like, how do you kill frogs? You increase the water slowly, the heat. I mean, sooner or later, it'll be something that will be hard for us to say no to. So I'm going to support the recommendations, but I also would like to see if there is any way, if we defer this, to find an administrative way to deal with this. Is there anything? I mean, I'm sure you guys look at this backwards and forwards, but this is the right thing to do, what they have here. So how can we do it within the rules?
Let me ask the staff, to what extent was the zoning category a topic of discussion as opposed to just it being used as a parking structure? Because there's a lot you can do under the proposed zoning MUL that's not the stated use.
So I think generally, a lot of the times when straight rezones come in, when someone is just requesting a rezoning to CS or MUL, they will say, my intent is this, I'm going to do this for parking. We are always looking at it from the standpoint of what does that zoning permit, not necessarily what we're told will be the proposed use. Because the policy, and in this case, it's a residential policy, I think everybody could say, well, a parking lot is probably an innocuous use and it's at the end of this road and it's next to a railroad, but we're saying, well, yes, but that's not the only use that's permitted under MUL. And so we have to look at it more from a broader application of what the zoning permits. And so it wasn't necessarily the parking, it was that the use as proposed of MUL is inconsistent with that residentially zoned property, or
but we
policy, I'm sorry.
Sorry. We could do it as an administrative SP and just restrict it to parking, right?
Well, I think based on that answer, we could probably defer and have some discussions around hearing your feedback and hearing sort of where the commission seems to be. We can have some discussions around the uses. I do think this is a difficult one in the sense that its location on the railroad and the edge of the policy. But as you noted, we want to be sure when you have residential policies that communities know and that they have reasonable expectations about what that means. And so I do agree the policy is not fixed, and in many times we will recommend amendments to make it something that's living. I think that the residential policy has been kind of a threshold, unlike many other policy areas, I would say. So if you'd like to defer and want us to take a look at the use categories and see to what extent that played into where we were, we're happy to take a look at that. But we may still come back and say, given what you've outlined, that our recommendation remains the same, but we're always happy to take a look again at it.
Would you mind asking the applicant?
Oh.
Let me ask a quick question. What is the zoning and use of Lot 253 that backs up to the proposed parking lot?
It's zoned IR, and Lee is going to look at the use here. It's generally, it says small warehouse, but that's from the tax assessor information. So it is IR.
It's a storage warehouse.
Just as another comment for the record is, because this is tied up with CDBG funds, which is truly earmarked, now Woodbine is saying that it has rights to sell it, but I think I have heard, and I think from reputable sources, that there are several not-for-profits that would enjoy having this piece of property in order to do housing. This is residential. I've gone down here a million times simply because I have a small contracting company, and we did some work down there. And it is a nice residential area, and we're running out of nice residential areas that are truly affordable for our city. So again, I just think we have to be careful how we remove the restrictions for CDBG funds, which are rare in our city right now.
Okay. Well, I have a question for legal. So if the commission, and not just, I guess, on this item, but for any item that came before it, if it were to vote to approve something that was inconsistent with policy, would that open up the commission to any type of legal action or problem?
I think you need to, if you disagree with planning, you need to say why you disagree with planning, how it is in your interpretation, in fact, consistent with policy. What about this proposed project would meet the policy? So if you're going to vote against the recommendation, I do think that there needs to be something on the record stating why y'all disagree with staff.
Okay, so you could not vote for something, that you thought was against policy. You would have to vote for something and disagree with planning's interpretation of the policy.
That's correct.
Okay.
Is the applicant okay with the deferral to try to continue to brainstorm with staff? Because I respect Commissioner Sims' concern, and if this really has a residential use that's needed for our city, how do y'all work with the neighbors and come up with something that works before we just remove it from the residential roles?
One other question, too, not to extend this discussion, but was there ever any type of discussion about a policy amendment at all, or?
Yes, this has been around for a while, and I think early on in discussion there was a question as to whether or not we could get there with a plan amendment. But that was regarding the MUL zoning. So I mean, I think if we talk about a less intense use in this location, and making sure that we have a conversation with this neighborhood moving forward, then and the applicant's okay with that, that might be something that we consider during the deferral time.
Okay. Do we have a sense of, if we look for deferral, how long the deferral would be?
I think if we're going to explore a community plan amendment, we would need probably 3 meetings just to plan for that discussion. But since we're not there with the applicant yet, we haven't charted that path, I might recommend a 1-meeting deferral. Then we sit down, have a conversation with them about the direction. If indeed a community plan amendment would help us accomplish what the commission's goals are as well as their goals, then they can always defer again so that we can meet our notice requirements and make sure that we do the right procedure. Do you agree with that, Lee?
Yeah, I do. I mean, going from a residential policy, an all residential policy, to something that's non-residential, we typically, it's a major plan amendment, and there are additional notification requirements for that. So we would need some time in order to have that conversation with the neighborhood.
Okay. Well, I will call for a motion if anyone has one to make.
I'll move for a 1-meeting deferral.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 1 recusal. Okay. So motion has been approved. We are deferring this item for 1 meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks.
So we'll move on to item number 16.
Item number 16 on your on your agenda. This is a request to rezone from R20 to IWD zoning for property along Ned Shelton Road. Staff recommendation is to approve. The property is currently zoned R20. It is adjacent to the north to property that is zoned IWD, as well as property to the west that is zoned IWD. There are other areas of R20 to the north and south. The land use policies on the property are conservation, recognizing some small areas of stream buffer, and also district employment center. A district employment center policy is intended to create concentrations of employment. It's a mixture of office uses and some light industrial as well. The requested zoning of IWD is consistent with the district employment center policy and is consistent with adjacent zonings as well, and therefore staff is recommending approval.
All right, we will open this item up for a public hearing. The applicant can come up. You have 10 minutes. You can reserve 2 for rebuttal.
Okay, good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Ditto, and I am with a company called State Street Group, and we are the developers of Hamilton Creek, which is what we call this development. We own the 35 acres immediately to the north of the parcel in question. Let me just kind of give you the overall vision of what we're doing here, and that is we're investing tens of millions of dollars into flex space, flex office and distribution space, and this is Class A product. And the purpose of it will be to provide a product that is needed in the area, and it'll create hundreds of jobs. The access to this parcel will be through the existing business park, which is Air Park East. Air Park East is home to Change Healthcare and property that's owned by Federal Express. I just kind of wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're planning on doing. One reason that we have decided to develop here is that there's a demand to develop close to a labor pool, and we believe that the Antioch labor pool is adequate and very good for what we are trying to do, which again is Class A flex space. So with that, I'll defer to Mr. Henry.
Commissioner Blackshear, members of the commission, my name is Sean Henry, 315 Dedrick Street. If we could go to the next aerial slide that's a little more zoomed in. As Mr. Ditto just stated, this is a 48-acre piece of property that is really part of what is fast becoming a portfolio of industrial-type warehouse distribution flex space property. And as this commission knows, you see virtually on every planning commission agenda changes from industrial zoning to mixed-use zoning very close into downtown. So we're losing a lot of industrial zoning in our county. This area, through your policies, has identified this as being appropriate for IWD-type zoning in that district employment center. And so this was on consent. We didn't expect that there was going to be any concern or opposition here today. So we certainly wanted to address that. I had an opportunity to speak with the lady who's opposed to this. And in talking with former Council Lady Karen Johnson, my client's certainly willing to amend the request here today to pull back the boundary of the zone change from fronting on Ned Shelton Road there's a policy boundary, a conservation policy boundary running through the middle, about 300 or 400 feet off of Ned Shelton Road. What we would propose is to pull that boundary off of Ned Shelton Road to the western boundary of the conservation policy. There's a stream running through there. That would roughly correspond with the stream buffer requirement that's in place through the stormwater regulations. So I think the fear might be that there's going to be access directly onto Ned Shelton Road. My client has no intention of doing that whatsoever. We simply requested the zone change boundary that corresponds with the parcel map itself. So we would propose to amend the boundary. Let's pull that boundary off of the frontage of the parcel, pull it back to the western boundary, which is the conservation policy there, and leave that area in residential zoning, and the staff can help us figure out that acreage through their calculations. So with that, yes, ma'am.
So are you requesting a deferral to amend the boundary?
If that becomes necessary, certainly here on the fly, I think you all could honor our request to amend it accordingly, but if that becomes necessary, we'd be willing to do that. So I'll reserve what little time I have left, unless there's any further questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, if you could come up and state your name and address. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chair Blackshear, Director Kemp. Congratulations. This is actually the first meeting that I've been to since you became the new director, so congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you. And also to Councilmember Bedney and all the other esteemed commissioners, most especially new ones that came before me when I was on rules. But I am here on item number 16. I'm Karen Johnson. My address is 2928 Moss Spring Drive, Antioch 37013, District 29. And I am the former councilwoman, and I'm speaking on item 2018Z 100PR001. And in working with Councilman at Large Bob Mendez, Attorney Bob Mendez, who graciously has been working with the community and myself on this item, we are requesting, after conferring with staff, that, and also with the developer, who has agreed to these changes, to look at possibly creating the plat with 2 lots so that the portion that fronts Ned Shelton Road remains consistent with the residential properties along Ned Shelton Road. That area is considered a recreational and residential area. It has a park. A lot of people recreated in that area, and it's all residential homes along Ned Shelton. So the people in that area have expressed that they would like to see that maintained along that street. I was the councilwoman that rezoned from residential to IWD on the Couchville side. And so that is something that the residents in that area agreed on for that to be changed. So it is consistent. But what we're asking is for a 2-meeting deferral to amend the application so that the portion that's along Ned Shelton can be carved out. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a note, because you are an elected official, you are allowed to go over your 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just didn't want anyone else to think they could do that. State your name and your address. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Delicia Porterfield, and I reside at 1027 Carlo Court, Nashville, Tennessee, 37217 in District 29. I came to speak to request that any property along Ned Shelton stays consistent with the neighborhood, which is a residential neighborhood. There were some safety concerns. There are families and children that live in that area. It is a very small, curvy, windy road. And there's also a school bus stop at Ned Shelton and Smith Springs Road. There's high traffic in that area. Smith Springs is a 2-lane street at that part, and the intersection of Ned Shelton and Bell Road is also a 2-lane street. So it's really important for our community that we keep that area along Ned Shelton as a residential area. So I just wanted to thank the developers and the applicants for that consideration and making that recommendation to amend it. And thank you all so much for your time and listening to us today.
Thank you. There's no one else speaking in opposition. Would the developer like to come back up for 2 minutes?
Sure. In terms of deferral, I think Register of Deeds, Johnson asked for 2-meeting deferral. 1-meeting deferral, 2 weeks would certainly accommodate that. Of course, we're trying to buy this property, so the sooner we can buy this property, the sooner we can give a deed to Ms. Johnson to record for us, so we want to give her plenty of business. But I think we can get this taken care of in 2 weeks. I'm not sure why 30 days and 2 meetings is necessary. So.
The staff recommended that, but hey, we can go with what you want to do as a developer.
Okay, so I'll ask Director.
I think I would, anytime we have sort of an amendment on the floor, I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with what's being proposed. And so if we think that we can accomplish an amendment or the change that addresses the concerns here in 1 meeting, then I think I would recommend that. We don't ever want to defer beyond what is necessary. So I'm seeing some nodding heads. So I might recommend a 1-meeting deferral. It sounds to me like this is going to be pretty straightforward to address those concerns, and that the applicant's willing to do that. So I think that's what I would recommend.
Okay, so I am declaring the public hearing closed, and commissioners, I'm assuming we can just go to a motion. Commissioner Moore?
I move for a 1-meeting deferral.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just really confused. I support the deferral, but I'm confused about the difference between the last 3 cases that we've just discussed. So we're changing from an area that's residential to an area that is going to be industrial, except for that one part along Ned Shelton Road.
Sorry.
It's okay. I think this is an excellent compromise, and I think it's a great idea. I just want to understand what, in theory, is different between this and the last case and the case before that.
Can you go to the policy map? So in this instance, we have an existing policy, district employment, and the zoning is one of the categories that meets that policy. So the policy in place that the community has articulated here and that this commission has approved lists a number of zoning categories that are appropriate, and the proposed zoning already meets that policy. In the other 2 cases, the proposed zoning did not meet the policy in place.
Okay, even though it's zoned residential, it can be switched over to industrial because it meets the policy of district employment.
So the commission's decision about a rezoning is based on the policy, and the policy is the guiding document that helps guide the discussion. Now, there are other factors that can play in, site constraints, individual sort of criteria and other things, but the policy framework is the first thing that you'll look to see whether a zone change is appropriate. And so this met the first threshold.
Okay, so that makes very good sense.
Okay, good.
And I just want to ask then one more time, and this is going backwards, but I really want to understand this because I otherwise feel like we're going back and forth. What were the overarching policies on the previous 2 cases?
So one way to think about it that I think that helps sometimes is, in this case, the existing RS20 zoning is actually inconsistent with the land use policy that's applied. The land use policy in this case is District Employment Center. The residential zoning is actually inconsistent. So by rezoning it, we're putting it into compliance with what the policy is suggesting is appropriate for this area, which is an industrial. In the other 2 cases, where you had a residential zoning existing in a residential policy, a policy that is envisioning that it remains as residential. When you're requesting a rezoning to a non-residential policy, you're moving further away from what the plan is envisioning. So in this case, you've got zoning that doesn't match the policy, so we're going towards the policy. In those other ones, you had zoning that already matched the policy, so we're moving away from it. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
Do we have any other discussion? So we have a motion for a one meeting deferral, and I think we had a second. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so the ayes have it. This item has been deferred for one meeting. So we will move on to item number 17.
Was that one not? So item number 17 is the Bedford Avenue UDO case, and this item has actually already been administratively approved. The UDO case is essentially a permit review to ensure that the proposal meets the UDO. The initial plan that we got had some major modifications associated with it. The plan has evolved to address all of staff's comments and meets the UDO today. But the commission had gotten comments several months ago on the previous version, so we just wanted to let you know that the issues have been addressed. And so this was more of like a housekeeping thing. It's not an item to be voted on, so it's not even open for a public hearing. But it was just more of a me saying to you that this has been addressed.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we will move to item number 20, the Historic Zoning Commission report. No report, that makes that quick. Item number 21, Parks.
I rue the day that Doug Sloan put me on Parks. I want to go on record with that.
Oh, no.
The November 6th Parks meeting, we have to hear the Church Street Park swap. So, and we have our first public meeting on October 22nd on that matter.
Well, that would be exciting. Everyone should tune in for that. Number 22, the Executive Committee report. There is no report. Number 24, legislative update. Councilman?
Just something, an unusual amount of dog kennels have popped out in rural areas. And so I decided to take a look at how we legislate dog kennels in Nashville. I probably regret that I decided to do that, but for the people that are watching, we're going to have a community meeting in October 22nd at the Cane Ridge Community Club. And because this will impact the whole city, people are invited to attend and give us feedback about, how much the balance between the impact on immediate neighbors and the needs of people to have a place to take their dogs. So just wanted to share with people watching that the meeting is a public meeting. It just happens to be in the Southeast. Thank you.
Thank you. Director?
Yep. Thank you. I have 3 items very quickly. First, I wanted to acknowledge the work that Lee Jones and his team did on Charlotte Avenue. This item moved forward on consent today. This has been an enormous undertaking with many meetings, and I sometimes want to present cases just so you can see the good work that's going on, but I know that may not give us a lot of love. So, but I just want to say it was a huge undertaking, and we've basically changed some of the bulk standards, streetscape standards, tried to address conservation areas that are vital, and I just really appreciate, Lee, the hard work that you and your team did. The second thing, just very quickly, again, a reminder, next meeting is at Bransford Avenue. Thank you, Lisa, for reminding us of that. And then the third thing is, I just want to acknowledge all of the sort of the public service and the commitment from the commissioners and the time. You have before you you just approved the 2019 calendar. It's in your packet. I had mentioned, you'll notice that we removed a meeting in August, and our goal is to sort of acknowledge that you have vacation and things. I do want to reiterate that it's vital that we have a July meeting because it has to do with council new council class coming in, and the outgoing council members a lot of stuff is going to happen in July, and it's really important that this commission be able to do that. So we've proposed a date of July the 18th. If for any reason, I've already heard from a couple of you, if for any reason you know that you're going to be out of town, let me know, because we got to figure something out. And with advance notice, I'm typically able to do that. So I'd very much appreciate you taking a look at those 2 dates. So that's it. Yeah.
It's one thing for your boss to compliment you. It's something else, Lee, and your team, to hear it from the commissioners as well. I don't get to say this often in public policy. I found it an elegant piece. And elegant's not a word you put in public policy very often. But the way it flowed and the way it fed into each other was actually something really beautiful to read. If you hadn't had a chance to study it, really do. It's a beautiful piece of work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I say something? I just don't want to take credit for that plan or the public engagement strategy or anything. I think that everyone in the department had a hand in it at some point, whether it was land development staff that you all see, every commission meeting making presentations here, pitching in to facilitate the discussions during a visioning session, or Dara, senior planner, leading the project, or Anita doing some of the public engagement. So it's all hands on deck, and it's a really large effort for us to take on, and it takes everybody's input in order to do it. So I appreciate all the department's work on it as well. Thank you.
I'd like to wish Commissioner Moore a happy birthday.
Happy birthday! All right.
I want you to come on your birthday.
Right now. So she can celebrate her birthday, meeting is adjourned.
By the way, you did it.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network.